Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Time for yet another show and a birthday in my family, though he's not listening to the show. One of the many brothers running around the planet. And, been running around for a little longer than anybody thought. All right, so it's like a big birthday. And I say happy birthday to him mostly because my mom might be listening. And my mom wants to say happy birthday to him, I'm sure. I do too, but he's not hearing me. You know, he's busy with things. So at any rate, that's what comes to mind for me immediately on any April 9th. So it's a big deal. Things going on in the house that are a big deal. I don't know whether you've noticed national news or not, but that also is a pretty big deal. It's also become international news. But here at Kagro in the Morning World Headquarters, we're preoccupied with a couple of things. First of all, the attempt to try to get the audio mix correct. So from what I understand, those listening on podcast, everything is fine because of the genius engineer upstairs who rebalances everything and it all sounds good. The live stream, I guess we're audible, but you got to turn us up. Like our voices maybe are too low. So I tried boosting the output, but it doesn't change anything in my headphones. I could turn up my own volume, but that won't help you. So I boosted the microphones a little bit. We'll see whether the mix is still right. We'll see whether Greg comes through correctly. I guess relative to the music, which fades out soon enough anyway, which is, I guess, what keeps the whole thing reasonable for you. We're just too low, and I tried turning down the music. I don't know whether I could turn down the music. The fanfare for Greg, obviously, is at the levels that you need it at because it needs to blow your ears out. But just generally speaking, I guess we just use volume levels for voice that are lower than most podcasts. Most podcasts, I guess, are really trumpeting their the central feature of the show, the voice, I guess. I don't know. We haven't intentionally lowered that or anything. But anyway, we'll keep monkeying with those things. We also have to fool around with the laundry machines every morning. Not really every morning, but this morning, I guess the engineer may be too tired to help us out today as he was up all night. I couldn't really figure out what all the racket was going on in the laundry area. But I guess something happened, and the washing machine must not have drained right, because now I have a literal laundry list of things to do to try to fix this thing. But it looks like I woke up to investigate what was going on there. There were buckets involved. There was some empty Band-Aid boxes out, so I think there may have been some injury as well. So everything seems okay, and the load that's in the dryer is dry, but there's definitely some stuff hanging in the bathroom that must have come out soaking wet, and in the middle of the night, too. So that'll teach you, don't do your laundry in the middle of the night, even if you're 20-something and you think you're invincible. Okay, that's not where most people's heads are today. Today, their heads are probably in, our hearts are on Wall Street. I guess, as we're all Wall Streeters today, even though you might be taking some vicarious joy in seeing them squirm. The tariffs are still a top story. Today is, as we said, April 9th. So at midnight, middle of the night, probably before the laundry went in, as a matter of fact. This is some really late night laundry, early morning laundry. But before the laundry went in, at midnight, tariffs announced by President Trump that I guess now total up to 104%. I laugh, except it's going to kill us all. 104% on goods from China, no more de minimis exceptions. So for people who have been ordering things, whether through Amazon or Temu or whatever, astonished at how cheap they are, that's all going away. The Chinese have retaliated against our so-called retaliatory tariffs with an 84% tariff. So they end up looking like the big guy here. And I'm the mature one. I'm only keeping it at 84%. So markets, well, never mind them. Greg Dworkin has been collecting the stories. I'm sure that's what was going to be much talked about. Court action that we covered yesterday. Very timely, and a lot of the news shows interviewing a lot of the people involved in the stories we picked out. So we did a good job as assignment editors. That's where we're at. I haven't checked in on the markets. I don't, That's not my life.
Well, futures are down 900 points.
Okay, so 900.
Remember,
seems like
they
a good
don't
number.
open till 9:30, so you can't check in on the markets because they ain't open. But on the other
Right.
hand, on the other side of the world, things are not going so well.
Okay. Oh, I had a submission, by the way, for some music for you.
Good.
We'll see whether you recognize it, and I'll have to fade it out fast so that the copyright police don't come around. But it has a fanfare at the beginning, and we'll see if you're all right. Nice, right? Okay. All right. It makes some sense to you. Good. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Very nice.
It's like Sherman and Mr. Peabody stuff. I mean, that's that era. Where are you from?
It's Rocky and Bullwinkle, I believe, and so we had a listener say, "Hey, try this one out," and
Love it.
We thought, why not? Any other suggestions?
Love it. It's as
Always
old as
welcome.
I am. I love it.
I figured that would trigger some memories. All right. Well, let me and I'll back up and see if I can't. There we go. Roger. Thanks, Roger. And Roger sent us some music today. And we'll keep things semi-anonymous. In fact, his real name isn't even Roger. I don't know.
You have time for a 30-second clip? I'll put it
yeah. All right.
This is going to be in the meeting chat.
Oh, boy.
Right at the bottom.
All right. Let's see. Meeting chat. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Aaron Rupar. How does he get what? Okay.
He gets everything.
Yeah. I don't know. When does he do his laundry? He must be exhausted.
In the middle of the night because he's busy.
I guess so. Holy cow. All right, let's get rid of that. Pause that, and then back it up, and then turn on the sound. I don't know if we have to turn it all the way up, but President Trump, that guy. Oh, look at him in a bow tie. Oh, he's so
well.
lucky.
He's at a fundraiser. They raised $35 million for the Republicans running for Congress.
Well, they're going to need it, but
he
I hope
said
they're
some very
robbed
stupid
of it.
things, so I want to play a couple clips.
Sure. All right, 30 seconds worth of stupid. Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay.
In the history of our country, and don't let some.
Let me just comment here. The death rattle voice is back. He's sick again. He's not going to say as much, but okay. The stress is getting to him. Good. All right. Let's hear what he has to. Well.
Look at his ear. His face is orange except for his ear.
You're not allowed to put makeup on that for 6 months. Well, how's it been? It probably has been, right? Yeah. Okay.
These politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate.
That's probably true. This is at the NRCC dinner too. So this is you're all stupid. I'm a genius.
So I just want you to understand that countries are going to come kiss my ass. It'd be a shame something happened to your country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. So he might be liking the death rattle voice. It makes him sound more mafioso, but to me it makes me
anything that makes him sound like an old fat Marlon Brando is like that's what he wants.
So they're coming to kiss you my ass.
I'm the Godfather. You got to come kiss my ring.
I couldn't even get Stormy Daniels to do that.
Yeah. And then he said something that was really stupid and incoherent, but that's like 2 minutes, and I don't really feel like it. So
I'll listen to it later, but I don't know if you've got it.
I'll send it to you later.
I love incoherence. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe we will play it then.
All right. Sure. Why not?
Let's see.
We got
that was that.
We cut it up into little bits.
Yeah, I got it. And it was earlier in the day.
It's probably in the
with a bunch of hard hats with bow ties on them for reasons that I don't understand. Another Aaron Rupert one. Again, at the bottom of the chat.
Okay, let me see. There we go. Another one.
This one's 45 seconds, but it's worth it for the incoherence.
I love incoherence. Okay. All right. Well, which one is this? I did see a bunch of these. Oh, I didn't see this one. This one has a giant valve involved, and not a new hard valve, which is probably the problem.
So he's talking about California and how he saved California from wildfires.
Oh, that valve. Okay. I thought that might be it, but
none of it is true, but most of it doesn't make any sense at all. And if we go to the tape, you'll see.
Yeah, sure. All right.
They do it. When I say do it, they do it, right? And we actually had to do some pretty strong things to get them to open it up.
No, not strong.
Think of this, they had all that water pouring out right into the Pacific. They had a big valve, like a giant valve as big as this room. And they turned the valve takes one day to turn it, and they face it toward the Pacific Ocean, and the water all that was...
The valve moves, too. Turn it towards the ocean. Okay. Wow.
Coming down,
one more.
all millions and millions of gallons coming down. They put it into the Pacific Ocean, which for the Pacific Ocean is like a drop of water.
Yeah.
But for California, it would have been unbelievable. So we did it. I'm very proud of the fact that we did it. We did that against a lot of heat and a lot of environmental nonsense.
If you listen to that,
I did,
and make any sense of it whatsoever, I think you should buy stock on Wall Street today.
Yeah, maybe I'm smarter than they are. Is that what you're saying? This is a tale he's told himself a number of times, that there's
completely
a giant water tap.
None of it makes any sense whatsoever.
Right.
And so I just want to point out some election results from yesterday. This is Wednesday, and sometimes there's elections going on. Sometimes they're really local.
What do we have? All right.
So Rolla, Missouri. County seat of Phelps County.
Oh, yeah.
Plus 43 Trump. Voted 73% for Trump in 2024 election. Okay. And they had an election, and the election was for city council.
Yeah.
And this is Bolts Magazine. Our friend Taniel summarizes all of the local stuff.
Yeah.
Members of the LGBTQ plus community in Rolla, Missouri have spoken up recently against recent efforts by city councilors to restrict their rights, including through censorship at the local library, proposed restrictions on drag performances, and an effort to stop a pride parade.
Okay.
3 of these councilors were up for re-election on April 8th. That was yesterday. Including the incumbent who proposed restricting drag performances. 2 of the 3 also sided with the majority in a 6-5 vote earlier this year that started the process of ending fluoridation in the city's water. I don't know if you remember the story of a Toronto city who did that. They did it based on the fact that upgrading their filter would cost a lot of money, and it turned out it cost them even more money when they had to put the fluoride back. Each faces an opponent backed by the local group of LGBTQ, Rolla, that's their group.
Okay.
And it turns out...
and dental hygienists.
The normal people won, and the extremist nutcases all lost in a 43-plus Trump county in the middle of rural Missouri.
I like that news.
Or that part, Missouri. So, the point is that you can be nuts, you can be incoherent, you can say this sort of stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is going all that well. So Trump says,
but it's
going I'm going to do tariffs, and I'm going to explain a little bit about why he's doing tariffs. But part of it is the Godfather mobster, you have to come kiss my ring stuff to try to force people to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And part of it is stupidity, and part of it is he just doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Wall Street, in all of their genius, keeps misunderestimating how stupid Trump is.
Yes.
And they figure it's posturing. He's going to change his mind. He's wavering.
He's going to cut a genius
deal. Maybe he'll take the tariffs back so the market goes up, 1,000 points. And then they realize he's not kidding, and it goes down 2,000 points. And then China does their own tariffs. And as Justin Wolfers puts it, 104% tariff on China, 104% chance of recession.
Oh, all right.
So let's just be very blunt about it. And so basically Trump is ruining everything. And Ruth Deyermond, who's a senior lecturer at the Department of War Studies, King's College London, a Russian and U.S. foreign and security policy expert, has this really, really interesting tweet thread. And I'm sorry it's on Twitter, but Twitter is sometimes where the action is.
All right. Okay.
So that's why I'm there.
So
she says... but I put it on Thread Reader apps. So you don't actually have to go to Twitter to read it.
Oh, well, that's convenient. Very nice.
Term 2.
That's a good idea.
Trump foreign policy.
Yes.
From tariffs to NATO to soft power to China is a mess, an epic mess.
Oh.
One reason seems to be the administration's operating with 2 conflicting, equally flawed views of the world and the U.S.'s place in it, which is a very nice academic way of saying he's really stupid times 2.
I guess so.
Trump administration policy is partly grounded in a worldview in which the U.S. is one of several great powers each with its own sphere of influence, but also a view of the U.S. as the unconstrained unipole.
Oh.
So you can't have great powers with spheres of
Terminology.
influence, but have the U.S. as the one power that decides everything. It doesn't work. It's one or the other, and they're both stupid.
See. Okay. That's
Okay.
odd.
And so speaking of stupid, I just have to throw in this from the
Yes.
New York Times.
That's
Their
stupid.
headline on Trump's being awful.
Yeah.
The Economist says this is really stupid. They ask a bunch of economists, and the economists all say this is really stupid. So the New
By the
York
book.
Times, of course, washes it. Totally silly, they say.
Oh.
Trump's focus on trade deficit bewilders economists. They're not bewildered.
Silly.
They think Trump is stupid. They said so.
Ahem.
It's right there in your damn article.
Yeah. Now, normally that would be a
Damn
devastating headline, but
Yeah. And then they bury it.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's not so great. But yeah, there's a pretty universal consensus with a few, the very Trumpy people who are in the administration saying, no. It's a genius
But even
thing.
them, Elon Musk said Peter Navarro's like a moron.
Right, that's true. There is that epic battle
That's
going
a quote,
on. I mentioned
by the way.
that right
I'm not
at the
trying
end.
to be
No.
rude
Yeah,
or anything like that, but that's what he said.
I saw it. Yeah, end of yesterday, I had to sneak that in. Like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a huge battle going on. This is the first time Elon Musk has realized I'm not able to call the shots. Well, not only losing money, that he does all the time. But
right. If you think of Elon Musk
thought I was
as a
president.
young Donald Trump, a lot of the dynamics make a lot of sense.
I guess so. Yeah. He
Trump
certainly
doesn't
thinks
have
himself
Ivanka,
as master of the
so
universe.
he's got Elon Musk as his mini Trump, but he still doesn't want Musk stealing all the headlines, and Musk hates it when anybody but him gets listened to, so he's really mad at Navarro. Besides, he's losing money because Tesla stocks are tanking.
Ivanka, when you mentioned Ivanka, I would love to have the reporters ask. I assume there's a press conference at which they can ask some Chinese officials about their retaliatory against the retaliatory tariffs. But I'd love for somebody to ask, so are you guys letting Ivanka keep her trademarks or what?
Yeah.
I'm just
Ruth
curious about
Deyermond,
that.
the Trump administration, talks about seeing the world as if it's 1892 and trying to party like it's 1992.
Ruth. Yeah. Wow.
The 19th century great powers model assumes that only great powers matter and only they have agency or sovereignty. That's why Ukraine shouldn't be fighting Russia. The rest of the world is there to be carved up between them. That's his view of the world, and that's why he's like totally anti-Ukraine. This attitude is reflected in, for example, suggestions U.S. is happy to leave Europe to Russia. The U.S. carves out its own sphere in the Americas. And the great power model assumes a world organized via pragmatic bargaining, rounded in real politic, and where the mutual capacity to inflict damage constrains expansionist impulses. In other words, how we got to World War I.
Oh.
At the same time, I added that, but that's what's going on.
Oh, yeah,
At the same time, you want to do 19th century, big power politics, you get World War I. At the same time, though, and despite Rubio's correct observation that unipolarity was an anomaly of the post-Cold War, it was good for America, by the way, because we were the uni.
Right.
The Trump administration seems to be replaying George W. Bush's approach to world affairs, in which the U.S. is the unconstrained global hegemon, but it's a much cruder and stupid version of Bush, one that, unlike the original version, entirely discounts soft power and alliances. Instead, it tries to coerce and extort allies and trading partners. In other words, he runs it like a mob business.
Yeah.
That's me throwing that in. The Trump message, she says, is give us what we want, buy more of our goods, give over your money, territory, and assets, or we raise tariffs, abandon NATO, and invade.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing it with Greenland. He's doing, she's spot on here in terms of what's going on. It's based on the assumption that other states have no choice but to comply. Instead, the Trump administration is finding out that because the U.S. isn't actually a neo-imperial unipole, other states can and will push back and take steps to decouple from the U.S., which, of course, leaves the U.S. weaker and less influential. Bush 43 foreign policy was itself damaged by false assumptions about the lack of limits of U.S. power, but it was operating in a world in which it was still just about possible to kid yourself, that we were as strong as we were in summary. There's no excuse for the administration making this mistake in 2025 when the costs of global war on terror era flawed thinking about limitless U.S. power have been visible for 20 years. Unless, of course, you take somebody who's paid no attention to the way the world has changed and put him in the Oval Office. As in so many other areas, Trump's grasp of the world and the U.S.'s place in it is decades out of date.
Yeah. He stopped updating the software a long time ago.
Of course, the multipolar great power model is also hopelessly outdated. You don't have a world dominated by three great powers, Russia, China, and the U.S., if Russia is dependent on China and the U.S. appears to be politically subordinate to Russia. And of course, the other states, that puts China on top of it.
Political union with Russia. Yeah.
And rock, scissors, paper. And of course, the other states of the world in 2025 are nothing like the 19th century. So together, they're producing an incoherent and foolish foreign policy that's doing immense harm to the global economy, global stability, Europe, European and U.S. security, U.S. influence, and U.S. credibility. And the number, speed, and depth of the unforced foreign policy errors made by the Trump administration is unprecedented. We've never been here before.
Like we've never seen it before.
Nobody's seen anything like it, right? As long as they frame their policy through outdated, contradictory lenses, things will only get worse. That's the summary, and that's the background behind where these tariffs are coming from.
Yes, there's certainly that. And there's a lot of reporting on a lot of angles, but they all end up, back at dumb. But this is the most erudite and thoroughgoing explanation of the dumb.
Yeah, dumb in two separate ways, 19th century. And, if you take all the mistakes that the great powers made in colonialization era and match it with the idiocracy of W, that's where you get Trump foreign policy from.
Terrific.
So bad that even Elon Musk can't stomach it.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk has got manufacturing concerns.
Well, everybody has concerns.
Oh.
But
he's
for
the only
example,
one that
this is
he's
John in Denver,
rich.
one of our commenters at Daily Kos, who posted this morning when I put up my pundit roundup.
All right.
I'm wondering how much American farmers will sell with an 84% tariff that China just put on the U.S. In 2024, the U.S. exported approximately $143.5 billion worth of goods to China, with major exports including oil seeds, grains valued at $18.5 billion, and that supports about 180,000 jobs in the U.S.
That's not a lot.
Leading U.S. states for soybean production: Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Indiana, and Ohio. Soybeans mainly are exported. We just don't eat that many soybeans.
Get used to them. Yum. Tofu, I guess.
Right. And the other thing that Trump wants to do, and I don't fully understand this, but you have to remember that right-wing influencers like Joe Rogan and others like him, Tim Pool, are also stupid.
Well,
and the meme currently is abandon all of your high-paying jobs and cheap goods. What you need to do is work in sweatshops for $2 an hour making T-shirts.
Yes.
Because we're going to bring all that stuff back from Vietnam and make them here.
Woohoo!
And as many experts, not just economic but political, who understand this stuff, I pointed out, people don't want to work in sweatshops. They don't want to work in factories if they can work in an air-conditioned office. They'd rather get paid more. They'd rather not lose their fingers.
Yeah, or sew them into garments.
Right, or work on washing machines and, open up a box of Band-Aids.
Or be trapped in the shop when it catches on fire.
Yeah, all that stuff. They don't want to do that. No, we want you to, because that's the manly thing to do.
Well, yeah, of course. Sewing garments.
So everything
absolutely manly
that Trump is doing is based on nonsense, and it's more than silly. But that's part of the reason why you get those results in Rolla, Missouri, and the state result from Pennsylvania. You got Trump 30 plus, Trump 40 plus counties who are voting for the opposition. And that's why Lee Stefanik's nomination to the UN was pulled, because they were afraid, rightly so, that they were going to lose that seat in New York. It's a plus 21 Trump district and therefore nowhere near safe.
Losable.
Very losable.
And
that's
also
what's going on. And so, again, the whole idea that, there's no opposition to Trump. Why is he doing these things? Why aren't people speaking? The opposition is all over the place. You just got to find it.
Look around.
Look around. Whether it's a hands-off march,
another one,
or whether it's the courts, or whether it's other countries retaliating on the tariffs, or whether it's these local elections, or whether it's town meetings, the resistance is there. And you just have to listen to it and go out and find it.
You might
and
even
you
be able
may
to listen to
think
Rand
that
Paul,
people on Fox News aren't hearing it, but people like Rand Paul are going on Fox and saying this is really stupid.
Well, I know it's galling people to say that he's right, but you can say that, and you don't have to hand it to him either. He's just reading you a textbook. Hand it to the textbook.
Well, he's been consistent.
Yeah.
Stop clock and all of that.
That doesn't mean I have to hand him anything. He's got plenty.
No, yeah.
I will tell you what. I will hand it to him, but I'm going to have his neighbor deliver it. Is that cool? Can we do that? All right. But he's quite correct. He's reading you the economics textbooks. Hey, these things don't work the way he's saying they work. He's got this weird, outdated idea about how they work. And none of the things that he says are his aims in doing this are likely either. So as I saw Justin Wolfers on the television saying pretty much that a brilliant piece of behavioral economics analysis, pointing out that the whole idea of, well, if we put a high enough tariff on everything, we'll just start making things here in the United States again. And he's just saying, anybody have any idea like how long it takes to go from, hey, we should do this to I've built a factory and the factory comes online? It's like 5 years. Before you start making things. And, in the meantime, you have to make this decision about whether you're going to undertake this gigantic capital project in an atmosphere where those tariffs, it's Donald Trump. They could be announced on Wednesday and gone on Thursday. Are you going to start this thing? Are you going to, and I would add, I guess in the middle of all this uncertainty, while people are trying to scramble to figure out what to do, whoa, there goes the sound. Oh, we'll turn that back down. The idea of, what we should be doing with our cash reserves now, spend them right away before we know what's going to happen. I don't think that's
Best headline
likely.
of the day, Elon Musk rage quits gaming live stream after players troll him. You ruined the country.
That's pretty good, yeah. There's no peace for you in the game chats. Why should there be? Everybody's lost all their Bitcoin. Okay, we'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show in the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. There's more to cover. Collapse of the economy, end of history. What's his name? Francis Fukuyama. You around? You were right. We are ending history. We thought you were wrong. We all laughed at you, but little did we know.
We're ending black history because, we're getting rid of it.
Right.
Anything that smacks of
Erase
race-related things you can't do anymore.
Right.
So you're not allowed to be black anymore. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
In case you were unaware.
Right. So if that was a thought some of you were having, maybe I'll be black, cut it out. If you already are, transition out. Make a white factory and build yourself white.
It's a construct,
Yeah. All right. Well, at any rate, speaking of building factories, Bill in Portland, Maine, where they have a few, says by the way, same thing applies, of course, to drill here, drill now, or drill baby drill, right? It takes a long time to actually get a well built, drilled, online,
oil
etc.
Prices are tanking.
Oil tankers.
So who's
are
going
tanking.
to drill when it's too cheap to make it worth your while? You can't sell this stuff.
Have we considered drill or I'll kill you?
Drill or kill.
Is that a possibility?
That's what we need.
Yeah. Well, he sounds healthy, and everyone should take his threats seriously as a result.
Mm-hmm.
I guess people should start asking where J.D. Vance is, because
no, because we don't want to know.
Well, we may find out as he takes the oath of office tomorrow, and the other guy doesn't make it. All right. And by the way, we are in danger of actually having to hold a state funeral for Trump now. Now that he's back, I guess if he dies in office, we're kind of stuck. Although he might not want one. I don't know.
If he dies in office, then the Dow Jones losing a point for every day he's in office will probably freeze. It'll stop. It'll stop dropping, and so everything will match
till they realize, oh my God, the other idiot.
Then it'll start going up.
Right. Oh well, maybe.
Only Trump wants these tariffs. Nobody else wants them.
Vance,
it's just that you have to do what Trump wants because he's the president, and you have to listen to what the president says.
It is possible that Vance is just, well, I have to do this because I'm the vice president, but I remember from school the tariffs are bad. But what am I going to do?
I remember from last week it was bad.
Because I'm 15. Yeah. Right, well, there's that.
I don't even pay attention in school, but last week people were calling me, my donors, and they're telling me like it's bad news.
Yeah.
Trump is too stupid to listen, but Vance is not.
Very stubborn. Very stubborn. I'm very tough. Okay.
Again, here's some article headlines from the New York Times, which is just annoying. China censors hashtags mentioning 104% the size of Trump's tariffs. Why? Shares in Europe and Asia fall. S&P 500 is near a bear market. That's 20% drop from peak. Totally silly. I told you about that one. Yeah. When it's really stupid. That's what the headline should say, because that's what the economist said.
Ruinous.
Explosive markets raise uncertainty about tariff endgame. We know what the tariff endgame is going to be. America's going to lose, and we're going to go into a recession. I don't know why they play with this. Like, game. Oh, well, I wonder what's going to happen here. What the hell do you think is happening? What do you think? Watch the goddamn ticker that you can't see on Fox News, because they won't show it to you.
Oh, look, Wile E. Coyote. I wonder what the end game is.
Hmm.
All right.
And by the way, analysis, again from the New York Times. For U.S. and China, a risky game of chicken with no off-ramp in sight. Trump has set it up so that he can't win.
Good job.
Pretty amazing for a guy, who knows all the art
tired
of the deal and who's a great businessman.
He's now tired of all the winning and wants to set it up to have a little bit of losing excitement.
Next step, and maybe you can have somebody, who actually understands this stuff on to talk about it rather than me.
No.
But here's my crude understanding of the bond market.
Oh.
If you issue a bond that nobody wants, you have to raise the yield on it so that people will buy it. If you are so popular that everybody wants your bond, then the yield can be relatively low because you don't have to spend your own money promising interest. They'll just buy it anyway.
All right.
So high yields suggest bad things, and low yields suggest good things. 3-day yield spike at levels last seen in 2020. The surge in Treasury yields, which affect everything from mortgage cost to loan rates. We're going to make cheap housing. How? By making Canadian lumber more expensive, but also at the same time raising your mortgage costs. That'll make it cheaper. You see, if we put everybody in recession, then young people, all you young persons, fellow kids, will be able to buy houses.
Instead of avocado toast.
That's how it works. So mortgage costs go up, loan rates go up. Draws into question Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's goal of bringing down borrowing costs to help consumers and companies. Again, let me just reemphasize. These people are really stupid. They're just as stupid on the immigration side, but Americans don't care about immigrants. They do care about whether or not they can buy a house, what their rent is, and what their 401ks are like. And they also care if you're rural, whether or not you can sell your goods overseas, because that's how you make money. And Trump is simply too stupid, surrounding himself by sycophants, some of whom are stupid enough like Navarro to believe it's going to work, and some of whom just lie to Trump because that's the only way you can stay there and have power. And it's just incredibly frustrating because, this isn't going to last, and he's going to tank, and his popularity is going to drop like a stone, and he's going to do all sorts of damage before that happens.
Oh, no. Well, I guess we have to live with it because we can't get rid of him before he can do it to us. It's already started, for one thing.
Do you know who Sarah Isgur is? Sarah Isgur.
I feel like I do.
She's a Republican operative, kind of a slimy one, often on TV as a Trump explainer, lies a lot, tries to position herself, sort of rust out hat style. I'm only reasonable. I only think logically, but my conclusion is always Democrats suck.
Oh.
That type.
Okay. I mean, I don't think I would have picked it out of a crowd, but okay, the name sounds familiar, and certainly the MO.
Yeah, very annoying person.
Right.
But this is what she said about what Trump did with immigration and the ruling by the Supreme Court that we're not going to, as of last night, make you return this wrongly held El Salvadorian prisoner. We're going to get a fact-finding hearing before we decide anything.
Yeah.
And Sarah Isgur, who's like not on our side, has this analysis of what actually happened. She says this ruling to get rid of the lower court judge's order that this guy be returned by midnight last night.
Yeah, like the
and
tariffs.
there was a stay put on it, an administrative stay by Chief Justice Roberts asking for more information for a hearing that was supposed to be held yesterday, and I haven't followed what happened since then. But the ruling by SCOTUS, she writes, was a total loss for the administration, and not just on process. It was a Marbury-esque move by the Chief Justice. Now, remember, one of the reasons I think this is a remarkable statement is because of who the source is. It's like if Scott Jennings on CNN said, "Wow, the administration is completely wrong, and they're going to get their head handed to them." He never says that. It'd be like if Rick Santorum said something like that when Santorum was a so-called analyst. The whole purpose of invoking the Alien Enemies Act was to do expedited removals without having to go through the Immigration and Naturalization Act administrative hearings. That was the point of doing Alien Enemies Act, she says. 9 Justice said the Alien Enemies Act still requires process. Now 4 said it requires process under administrative law.
Yes.
APA, that's administrative law.
Right.
And 5 said it requires process under habeas corpus. Those are the ones that said it should have gone back to Texas because that's where his body was at the time.
At the time, but it isn't there now.
It isn't there now. But guess what? Habeas corpus means going into federal court for every individual and all the process due, which is a lot more than the administrative process under the Immigration and Naturalization Act. Yeah. So the court just said, you're welcome to try to use the Alien Enemies Act if you want, which may or may not be lawful. We haven't decided that yet. Right. But we've taken away your reason for wanting to use it in the first place. You did it so you didn't have to do due process, and you have to do due process. Thanks for playing.
It's a way of
in the meantime, the administration gets the claim of victory and the court escapes unscathed. So it's a win for the institution. The aliens who are already being detained under the INA, the Immigration and Naturalization Act, they're in no worse shape than they were before, so they didn't lose anything. And that's why Roberts did this. That's her analysis. It's not bad.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that there was a very significant element of defeat for the administration in it, but it was also we recognize that there's this tremendous problem happening here, and we're going to escape from deciding it right now and give you something. There's a ruling. It's out there. It will materially affect how things go if it's obeyed, I guess. Although another great analysis of how it went here was passed on over social media. It's this. Let me open this up here. Isaac Butler. And Isaac Butler is what are we looking at? He just happens to make a very good comparison here. I don't think he has any particular expertise in constitutional jurisprudence, but saying here the Supreme Court's strategy here seems, as he says, pretty clearly to be to forestall admitting that we have a constitutional crisis by giving Trump as he sees it, huge victories on narrow procedural grounds. That is to say, we won't declare your use of the Alien Enemies Act unconstitutional at this point. We might do it later.
Yeah, but yet is the important part.
But as he says here, they're forestalling admitting that we have this constitutional crisis by giving these victories on narrow procedural grounds. He says this is akin to having engineers move the Rubicon River closer and closer to Rome to avoid Caesar crossing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is an interesting way of putting it. I like the analogy, certainly. You could agree or disagree about whether or not that's what they're doing consciously, but it's kind of like the number of times we've been told, this is it. If they defy the Supreme Court on this, all right, well, the Supreme Court is just going to move the goalposts. You can't defy us on this, but if you do, give us a few minutes to move it again, and then we'll tell you why it's okay for now. But yeah, there was very nuanced and two different cases moving here, and they touch on one another, but they don't bear directly on one another. But the Abrego Garcia case of let's get this one individual who's been removed by administrative error, as the administration says, to El Salvador versus, well, can we handle this as a class action? Can everybody who's under threat of rendition to El Salvador be treated the same way? And can we handle it in one big case? And the court said no. And the original plaintiffs certainly hoped that they would have said yes. But this is also an interesting observation. This mires the administration in court on every individual detainee who they're seeking to deport. Now, then the next question is, can they get to court before they find themselves on a plane and out of the country? Because the administration still claims if we clear international airspace, we don't have to listen to courts anymore. And that's not true either, but that's what they're sticking to. So we got problems. We got issues. And
to change the subject back a little
don't do
bit,
that.
because I don't have anything more to say about it. I mean, what he's doing is awful, but again, for reasons which I don't fully understand, Americans don't really care about any of this stuff. They still give Trump like neutral on
and they don't
immigration.
think it's going to happen to them.
Yeah. They give Trump neutral marks on immigration. He's not 15 points ahead on this stuff. He's neutral. It's basically 51-49 positive on immigration. And he's like minus 25 on the economy. So that's one of the reasons why the politics people are focusing on the economy. It's not that they don't care about, rule of law and process and stuff like that. But the 2024 election taught us that's not what people vote on. It's so politicians whose job it is to get elected, that's their job. You can yell at them for it, but that's their job, or in some cases reelected, are not focusing on that. They're focusing on the tariffs in the stock market. The stock market isn't the economy, but it's so visible that it's an easy target.
Yeah, unless
you
not
only strike while the
screen.
iron is hot, you strike where the iron is.
Yeah. I mean, for whatever reason, we've been taught to believe that that's the major piece of news. It was an interesting. I would love to see a history of the news networks, including stock tickers, just constantly crawling along the bottom of their screen as though that was the most important news ever. But yeah, at some point
they don't
decided
do it on daytime TV.
No. This is absolutely true, and they just sort of invented this central occupation with the stock market as news. This is the news that everybody needs to have. It's
a lovely chyron
on
People
demand.
Focus on it. There's a chart that moves up and down.
Yeah.
I mean, when you just
dynamic.
say plane missing 137th day, or hostages in Iran still hostage, or even Israeli hostage, whatever you want to do, it's not dynamic.
I guess that's true.
But this thing going up and down, it's pretty dynamic.
Anyway, but yeah, it's right. Everybody recognizes that this is problematic, and I guess that's why we saw Fox take it off the other day. Oh no, our audience will realize how terrible this is. We trained them to see that when it was green, it's good, and red, bad, and it's been red for days, and it's falling off the bottom of the screen. We might take a negative conclusion from this. All right, we'll get rid of it then. Here's some news about how nice Mar-a-Lago is.
So I'm going to find it for you. It's on my phone, so I can. There it is.
I could just seize your phone.
So yeah, you can just look at my phone. I found it for you so you can actually look at it in real
All right.
time. I'm putting it on the meeting chat there.
Uh-oh.
This is my friend Numbers Muncher from Twitter. He's a conservative, but we've been communicating for like a decade because he's in the Romulan neutral zone of poll analysis.
Okay.
So we know each other. Decent guy. You're not a Trumper at all.
All right.
And he says to show how much he's basically
crazy. I don't
know. No, he's
throwing something.
He would prefer less taxes, and he's a small businessman, but he's not anti-woke and he's not anti-gay. He's a decent guy. So, and he writes, to show how much the current China tariffs, remember, this is about stories because people don't always process numbers. To show how much the current China tariffs will impact price, a quick look at how my small business pricing would have to adjust.
All right.
I have an item. I pay $4 or $5. I sell it on Amazon for $20, and I make around $1 to $2 on it.
Okay.
Okay, because it costs the package, it costs the advertising, you have to pay Amazon, you have to ship,
Workers.
all that stuff.
Right.
If we had 104% tariffs, my cost goes from $5 to $9.50. It almost doubles.
Yeah.
To make $1 to $2 on Amazon, I have to sell that same item for $28.
Yes.
So it's gone from $20 to $28. In other words, Trump's tariffs will cause an immediate 40% increase to consumers to make the same amount of money. And imagine that increase across the board. 40%.
Yeah.
And then he goes on and reminds people not only of all the different objects and things that are going to cost more, from housewares to clothes to phones. He says, you guys were screaming about the amount of inflation we saw under Joe Biden. Prices on my items just went up 40%.
Right.
All of this is to say that as of right now, my small business is effectively a holding period, as I assume that many others are. It won't take long for Trump's tariffs to cause lasting damage one way or the other, because it won't be sustainable at these levels for anybody. So, again, one of the annoying things, you can get mad at Trump for doing this, but one of the annoying things is all of the apologists saying, well, you just have to, suck it up and deal with the pain. Won't be that much anyway. But even if it is, you have to do this because we've been ripped off for too long. In other words that don't make any sense. They make as much sense as a giant valve the size of this room that was turned to the Pacific, and we turned it to the Atlantic, and now water flows across the country and there's no more drought.
Right, except we needed it actually in the Pacific area.
And the trouble with the Mississippi is it flows from north to south. We need to make it go from west to east, so we're turning it.
Yeah, right.
We just rotate the country.
Turn the valve.
We're fine. That's all we need.
Yeah. Just
right?
go
You
ahead
turn
and
this valve, the entire country pivots.
In
the because that's why they call it the heartland. You go to that place where all four states touch, and the entire country swings.
Wheels. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Florida is east.
Excellent. And sticks
south.
Way out, and it could
and Canada is west.
Why don't
and then we don't have a border problem anymore with Mexico, because Mexico's out there in the Atlantic Ocean. So, I'm a genius. Nobody really unappreciated this except
me. If we turn it right, Florida will it'll be a land bridge to Greenland, and we can invade over it.
Well, then they're attached, and it's ours.
Perfect. So, all right, that having been solved.
So we and the woolly mammoths and Hannibal will just go over there and take that island. That's all.
Yes. Well, I have seen similar claims from others.
My point is, this isn't going to work. It's unsustainable. The idea that, Trump people always follow him, nothing ever happens to him, that's garbage. It's not true.
He's not a
he
Trump
won the
person,
election because
still.
everybody hated Biden, not because people loved Trump.
That was the margin that he needed to get over the top from his core base of weirdos that were going to vote for him, even if they understood what was going to happen. But yeah. I saw there's a video that I don't know. I guess it's gone semi-viral, but it's similarly situated person, somebody who's in the business of importing goods and then reselling them here in the United States. It's a time-honored tradition. It's the chief focus of most retail business here.
Now, I'm not a business person, so I was laughing at this. John Gantz, who I follow.
I don't know.
Said, the basis trade is blowing up.
The basis trade.
And Matthew Gertz.
So Bases
Matt
trade?
Gates, but Matthew Gertz retweeted that and said, be smart. If you're not in finance and suddenly need to know what something called the basis trade is, things are bad.
I guess so. That's true. I don't know what it is. I'm not certain what they're talking about. But we did learn something. One of the terms that was in this tweet that you sent from Numbers Muncher that you skipped over because, wow, who knows what this lingo is, the landed cost. But we're going to be hearing a lot about that, too. And that was in this, that's what reminded me, was in this other guy's video. A guy who sells watches, luxury, wrist watches. Did you see this thing? Did it make it to your desk?
No, I'm just thinking, I'm just remembering when those kids were trapped in a cave in Thailand and all of a sudden everybody was an expert in spelunking and then the COVID comes and everybody's an expert on viral
There are virologists.
treatment, right? Now all of a sudden we're experts on basis trades and
that's one I haven't
costs
learned. But I'm listening to people who deal with this all the time, and it's a landed cost is a easy enough concept to understand. It's basically like the walkout price on buying a car or something. Landed cost, how much does it cost me to get my hands on the stuff I had shipped here from China? The price I paid them that made the Chinese manufacturers say, yes, I'll put this on a boat, plus the tariffs I had to pay in order to get stuff out of hock from the dock. It's being held in customs. I pay this thing, they give me the money. No, they give me the stuff. That's how much is when I buy something for $4 from China and there's $1 tariff on it, the landed cost is $5. Easy enough. But we're going to start hearing people talk about that. You should be aware of that.
Yeah, my landed cost doubled.
Right. Yeah,
not
actually,
landed
my
gentry. Landed cost went up 104%.
Right. So, but watching this guy talk about how he prices his watches for sale in the United States was also very interesting. He's going through all the calculations, and some of them have components that come from this country and that country. So it's very complicated. So there's lots of annoyance happening for sure.
Well, if there's a tariff on each one of the components, maybe it's going to go up more.
Yeah. So he's calculating.
I understand the percentage is based on what it costs in the first place, but still,
it was also
a lot of different parts, a lot of moving parts here, and none of it's going to be good.
So
John Gantz explains a little bit about this basis trade thing. Basically, what he's saying is there's a whole bunch of people that make money on the difference between what something costs now and what something is going to cost in a little while.
All right.
Right. And so investors and analysts pointed to the misfiring of popular trades that aim to exploit differences in price between treasuries and associated futures contracts. That's known as the basis trade. As hedge funds cut back on risk and exit these trades, they're selling treasuries. That puts pressure on markets, making the yield go up. Treasuries aren't worth as much. If that's the case, people won't invest in them. It could be a vicious cycle. And the next thing you know, nobody wants to invest in treasuries. That means nobody wants to put their money in America.
And that means we run into the debt ceiling faster.
Hedge funds have trillions tied up in this kind of strategy. As things spiral, they're being forced to sell anything they can, even good assets, just to stay afloat. And if the Fed doesn't step in soon, this could turn into a full-blown crisis. It's really serious. One hedge fund manager said these huge hedge funds with trillions of dollars of treasuries, relative value trades, will blow up today if the Fed doesn't bail them out. So it sounds like a crisis. It also sounds like the hedge fund managers, many of whom have been loudmouth Trumpers, are FAFO today.
Oh, no. Well, it'll take them a lot longer to find out because they have bunkers and panic rooms.
Right.
But, there's no getting around it. And we're learning new terminology about all of this stuff.
I don't want to learn new terminology. You only learn that in a crisis.
That's true. That is true. And that's one of the leading. That's
not
all you really need to know, right?
But this is not the time.
If you can't grasp it, right? All you have to really know is my fate appears to be in the hands of people who are speaking a language I do not and cannot understand, and that is bad. It used to be that they were doing that, but it didn't matter. What came out the other end was I got stuff I could afford, the things I wanted were available in the market, and I was happy. Now, when you're going to be looking for explanations for why the things you wanted aren't available. Not only that the price has gone up, but you are going to find others are pointing out, the real life impact of this stuff for the consumer is not that prices will go up 104% necessarily on things you're getting from China, but that you will begin to find that those things are not available at any price, even if you want to pay the 104% markup. It's just not there, because I don't care if you want to pay it. Did the guy importing it want to pay it? No.
So again, this is a poll from YouGov just out.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out for those, again, it's important to emphasize this. You can't say it enough. Let me repeat that. That, Trump popularity is not great, and it's not fixed, and it's not like, well, nothing he does matter. It all matters.
Yeah.
This is net favorability of Donald Trump comparing the start of his second term to now.
Yes.
By age. And that's why it's so interesting.
Okay.
18 to 29-year-olds, for reasons that have to do with Joe Biden not knowing what social media is, 18 to 29 gave Trump a +5 at the beginning of his second term.
All right.
He's now -29. And you could say, yeah, listen, kids, we told you. Now you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. That's that group.
All right.
30 to 44 was -6. Now it's -14.
That's not
45
enough.
to 64, the people who came of age under Reagan, who for some reason still think Republicans know how to manage the economy, was a +12 at the beginning of his term, now +1.
Still plus.
65-year-olds and plus was -4, now it's -8. So don't at me about the boomers.
Yeah,
get it.
Right, true. It's me, but don't at me either, because I don't have anything to tell you. The kids have gone crazy, though.
They know.
They're very upset. Well, they're the ones who, and they are maybe the most impacted. They are the ones for whom it is absolutely 100% normal for imported goods from around the world to just be available in abundance, super cheap, to pick up as impulse items on your way out of the store, whether brick and mortar or Amazon, what have you. Like, you're trying to check out at Amazon. You also might want a tractor. Yeah, I might. I'll take one of those. 50 cents for a Temu tractor. I'll take it.
Yeah, how big is it? Like 3 inches? I'll give it to my grandson.
No, it's a full-blown thing, and it doesn't have an engine in it.
I'll still give it to my grandson.
Yeah, right. It'd climb all over it. But the age of nearly free imported goods is kind of over. And I mean,
they cost, but and inflation and all. But now that you see what they cost now, they used to be free.
Right. And but yeah, again, the larger point that eventually the importers, the people responsible for making it get from the boat to the shelf or storefront on the internet where you can buy it, are going to start saying, I don't want it anymore. And you're going to notice things are not available. I would have paid extra, maybe not 100% extra, but I would have, but it's not there. Because people can't afford those tariffs. Countries aren't paying them. We'll see you tomorrow.
Right.
All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We bid farewell for the time being to Greg Dworkin, who returns to us tomorrow, assuming, there's a tomorrow. And we haven't priced that out of the market. Oh, I need to remind him, though, if you're still listening, Greg, Russia, if you're still listening, don't forget to move all those links over to the permanent chat. This is the big downside of Zoom, is that there are 2 places you can park things, and the easier one is the one that disappears as soon as you end the call. I try to open these links as he's talking about them, not only to follow along, but so that some of them will be available to me right away. But all right, well, we'll take care of that, and I'll send him a note later on to make sure that we can do that, so we can get the summary out to you. And Scott will have plenty to work with, and we'll actually have the links that count. Okay, so yes, I was saying on the way out, I want to reiterate this point and try and make it a little more, I guess, calmly and coherently. But it's not my point that people are that has interested me. It's others pointing out that the upshot of the tariffs is not so much, well, it's certainly not simply, especially when we're talking about goods from China. They're now getting this 104% tariff effective rate on it. And remember, China is our second biggest trading partner, I think, by dollar volume of imports, behind Mexico, and I guess just ahead of Canada. But I mean, it's a major trading partner. I think everybody kind of knows that. But it is interesting. I do think it will impact, and I guess we see in the unpopularity of Trump among the kids, and it's certainly not solely about trade for the youngest voters, the kids, as I say. That's maybe of the least interest to them. They are, I would assume, more interested in attacks on their LGBTQ peers. That bothers them more than anything else, or their migrant or immigrant peers who are finding themselves having to hide from the authorities on a regular basis, so they're not rendered to El Salvador, for instance. So I think that's probably bothering them more. But they will see the impact of it. I think they shop differently, generally speaking, than us older folks, and they have become used to the idea that most of the suppliers of the stuff they want to buy, whether it's on there's the suppliers of everything on Temu. Temu is insane. I don't even know how the hell that ever worked, but probably in the cabinet room they were pointing to that for Trump and saying, look at the pricing of everything on this Temu. It's the stuff is, I think, is garbage, but it's available for pennies on the dollar. I mean, that's the big attraction of Temu, is that they're able to advertise things online to impulse buyers, saying, you can have a pair of sneakers for $8. Like, all right, that's a pretty good bargain. People suspect they will fall apart very quickly, but while I have them on, for the 6 months that I've got them, fine, $8. I mean, some things fall apart in 6 months and you pay $100 for them. So why not, right? But even without Temu, if you're shopping on Amazon for whatever, gadgetry items around the house, whatever it is, you find that a lot of these suppliers are Chinese. And even if they're selling the name brand merchandise, you start to notice, this is not being sold by Amazon.com. The seller through Amazon, I buy it through Amazon, no less. But have you begun to notice this? I'm sure you have, right? The proliferation of, the supplier is some kind of gobbledygook combination of English letters, but it doesn't make any sense, and it's not a company you ever heard of. And as it turns out, it's either a Chinese supplier or somebody, a drop shipper. I guess they're the ones who are really in trouble. And the youngest voters are probably most familiar with that. May even be drop shippers themselves, where your business is selling stuff that you don't make. And I know that's what's upsetting Donald Trump, right? We got to bring the manufacturing back to America, but this plan won't do it either. Anyway, but if you're in the drop shipping business, I'm going to be in the business of advertising, whatever it is, filters for your air purifier. I'm going to need some of those soon, by the way, and they come from overseas. I'm advertising that I have them for sale. I don't have them, but I will sell them to you. You buy them from me, I will turn to this Chinese supplier and use the de minimis exception from import duties, tariffs, to just say, I just need 3 of these things packed in a box, and instead of shipping them to the guys who put them in a shipping container and ship 1 million of them to us, I want you to just ship me these 3. That comes in under the de minimis exception. It's just a small package. Just ship it directly to the person who ordered it. I'll give you their name. And you take care of getting it to them, and I'll skim a profit off it. But that won't be happening anymore, because people will be saying, well, that's interesting. Instead of $1.50 per filter, it's now $7. I don't want it. It's not a good price. Or I can just go get it at, in some cases, over at the Home Depot. Or I didn't go get it over there before because it was $6 versus $1.50 online. Now it's $7 online. I'll go to Home Depot. But Home Depot eventually will have to admit to you, yes, we also buy these from China, and now the Home Depot version is going to go to $12. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll go back to the Amazon drop shippers, though, because those guys will have dropped that business. They'll stop doing it. They won't be in that business anymore. The overhead costs drove them out of it. Somebody could step in, somebody who doesn't understand that it used to be higher margins at lower prices but, is now involved in the game saying, well, okay, I've found some margins where I can make it work. But they're not comparing it to the way it used to be before. Maybe eventually they'll enter the market. And Amazon's online nature makes the cost of entering that market, I guess, lower than usual, lower than it used to be. But yeah, we don't know whether anybody. The next question is, will they have the capital to put up to get this thing started? It's very unclear. So, all right, we'll see. But I guess the point to take away from it is, even if you think you'd pay the price, even if that thing you need that happens to come only from China and is just indispensable to your life, and it was cheap to begin with, so now at 100% more, it's still, I can come up with the cash. The question is, will the importers who do the hard work of bringing it to you, making it happen such that it is made in China but still arrives at your doorstep seamlessly, will they be willing to do all of that? Such that, and only at only 104% markup. They may want 300 or 400% in order to pay all the people in the middle of this transaction what it will cost to keep them working. I don't know whether anybody's going to be offering you the stuff, right? You name the product, whatever it is that you were buying, even with the addition of the tariff on top, if you have the cash for it, that doesn't mean that the other people have the cash to stay in the business of bringing it to you. All right, let's see. What other interesting items to add to this before we transition to the other items on the agenda, and who knows which ones we're going to be able to fit in at this point. Let's see. Mike Musson sends us this note. What's ironic is wealthy people and companies are used to largely dodging the amount of tax that they should nominally be paying, but are affected by the tariff tax and can't dodge it. That's true, too. Of course, well, it's interesting, too. Usually we say, well, tariffs are, like sales taxes, a regressive tax. That is to say they hit, by percentage, they hit the lower end of the economic spectrum harder because it's harder to meet the burdens of paying them in terms of raw dollars, and the wealthy and, of course, the ultra-wealthy, to whom no amount of money is more than pocket change, they can pay those things off. But I guess the volume at which the ultra-wealthy tend to be involved, or their business interests are involved in moving goods like this, and doing it from China in particular, I may end up hitting them harder. Well, I don't know. We'll have to see where it shakes out. Nobody's going to be comfortable with this, but I guess that's a good point too. That the ultra wealthy are used to being able to engineer ways of dodging taxes can't seem to get around this one. Although eventually they'll find a way. My guess is, in addition to finding out about all this tariff war with China, one of the things I've read about along the way is that the Chinese, Japanese, and South Koreans have been in talks, probably as a direct result of all this. I don't know whether the planning goes way back before all of this, but it's taken on a new importance now. But together discussing regional economic cooperation. And now, probably on the table, are a lot of things. In addition to the regional cooperation they were probably imagining before, they may all lower tariffs among themselves and in order to free up a regional Asian Pacific trade. But they may also, I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Yesterday, in talking to the coal miners or whoever it was that Trump was addressing, he, in addition to saying lots of countries, many countries are kissing my ass. One of the countries I think that he called out that said he's reached out for a deal and they're doing a great job. South Korea, the Koreans are headed in the right direction. So I guess the Koreans allegedly, I don't know whether they really did it or not, but Trump was willing to hang this around their necks that they are willing to do whatever it is that Trump is demanding of them such that he can lower their tariffs, which I would then couple with the regional economic agreements that are going on between the three aforementioned countries. I would not be terribly surprised to see the Chinese interested in engineering some kind of a bargain whereby unfinished goods are now shipped to and assembled in Korea so that they could be labeled made in Korea and enter the United States at the lower tariff that the Koreans are able to finagle from us by allegedly submitting to our demands. And that will just backdoor in all the China products, which Trump is saying, his whole scheme here is we're going to end all of that. We're going to prevent that from happening. But I don't know how effective they're going to be at it, and I don't know how effective they want to be at it. I think they do want a couple of loopholes because it is their biggest fans among the ultra wealthy who will be able to manipulate this and take advantage of it from the outside. And that'll become their loophole. I don't know. Just a prediction. Don't know whether it will really come to fruition. Meanwhile, I guess one of the other things that struck me yesterday about Trump's incoherent speech to the coal miners, it was contradictory with what was supposed to be administration policy. I thought it was interesting as we heard the other day when Howard Lutnick was on the Sunday shows and Face the Nation. Aaron Rupar captured it for us. The part of his appearance in which he says he was giving the administration line. Well, what these tariffs will do is bring manufacturing back on shore, and everybody who's looking for work in the United States, where unemployment is still relatively low, but will be more of it as we shake up the economy and turn it upside down and panic all of the major players in the American economy, and they'll respond to that by laying people off, and then they'll get jobs at manufacturing concerns 5 years from now, as Justin Wolfers points out, when we finally build these plants. But hold it. Why build? You're better off leasing at $1.25, $1.50 a square foot. And you take a down payment and put it into CDs or something else you can roll over every couple of months, as we were taught by Rodney Dangerfield in the business class scene in back to school. But you don't have to build, that's true. But it's going to still take a long time to stand up these industries. And then what do you got to do? You got to find people like, as Howard Lutnick says, there's going to be an army, he says, of millions and millions of human beings, thanks for thinking of us that way, screwing in little screws to make iPhones, which already happens. It just happens in China. Apple already looking to make it happen in India, where the tariffs are lower than 104% anyway. But we have, for the last couple of decades, generally understood this to be difficult and uncomfortable and, in some cases, painful labor. And we are only too happy, like with our food processing, to see it happening in the abstract. Somebody else is doing all the circuits. Still results in high prices, and that annoys me, but we can finance those high prices and take the burden off and pay monthly instead. But in the meantime, somebody else should be putting in all those little screws. But Howard Lutnick was promising us, you're going to go to work putting in those little screws. And isn't that great? The army of millions and millions of human beings screwing in little screws to make iPhones, that kind of thing is going to come to America. Lutnick has a really terrible bedside manner, of course, and a terrible way of delivering things. Even sometimes if the thought underlying it is supposed to make sense, he makes it sound like he's aloof and has no idea what the real impact is. What he said the other day about Social Security checks, which, by the way, are getting screwed up, and people are beginning to notice, hey, they're not showing up as regularly as they are supposed to. And I can't seem to get anybody on the phone at the office to answer questions about why, because Dodgy has eliminated that. But yeah, he was the one who said a couple of weeks ago, well, if a check is missing, he was talking about his own mother. If her Social Security check goes missing, she'll probably think it's some sort of administrative screw up, and she won't complain right away about it not showing up. And people took that to mean, oh, well, she's probably wealthy, or at least you are, and you can keep her extremely comfortable. She doesn't care whether or not the Social Security check shows up. This is a rich person saying, who would notice such a small amount of money as $1,000, $1,200 a month anyway, because I'm so wealthy? The rest of us would say, that's an awful lot, or it's even everything we're getting, for instance. Well, I don't know whether he really meant that. He may have. He's a very wealthy and insensitive person. But I thought he meant just the nature of, in his case, his rather elderly mom, 94 years old. The nature of the 90-plus crowd is usually kind of, especially if they're actually comfortable, I don't make a fuss. Even if it is a government benefit that I'm supposed to get, and I'm supposed to make a fuss. And even if you aren't as wealthy as she is, there are sometimes at 94... sometimes they don't notice because they're not quite on top of things. But more to the point is I do think that there's a generation that is just sort of trained to think, and maybe it crosses generations, I better not make a fuss out of this. This is probably a misunderstanding and it will correct itself because I have faith in the government. That's something that a 94-year-old might have. That a 24-year-old probably never developed in the first place. But I think he might have meant that. Anyway, he's not particularly good at making those points, nor is he particularly good at making this point. Putting little screws to make iPhones and that kind of thing is coming to America. He says, hooray. But we know that actually that's probably not going to be a very popular job. And you know who else knows it? Honestly, as difficult as it is to credit him for knowing anything, Donald Trump. Because in his speech to the coal miners, he was telling them, one of the things I learned about the coal miners, that's what they want to do. He's praising them, of course. You guys are hard workers and, we love you for it. But that's what they want to do. You could give them a penthouse on Fifth Avenue. Why did that come to mind? And a different kind of job, and they'd be unhappy. They want to mine coal. This is in this case Hillary Clinton, she was going to put them in a high-tech industry where you make little cell phones and things. And he's belittling the idea that anybody who could be so manly as to mine coal would ever accept so, I guess, womanly, I don't know, a job as putting little screws in to make cell phones. 2 days ago, your Secretary of Commerce was out there saying, hooray, Americans will finally get their chance to put little screws in iPhones in America. And everybody knew that was garbage the moment he said it. And now, 2 days later, the president, for whom Lutnick works, at his pleasure, of course, tells everybody, you don't want to put screws in a little thing to make a cell phone. You want to do something manly like mine coal. And he also, by the way, I do note for the record, he also said coal was, he was praising it as an energy source, and it's indestructible. Yeah, it's the most resilient source of energy, right? And he did say indestructible. You could drop a bomb on it, and it's there tomorrow for you to use. Although I'm not positive that that's the case. We did drop an awful lot of bombs on an awful lot of coal, like, say, during World War II. And the point of that was so that it wouldn't be there the next day for the enemy to use. So I'm not so sure how well that works. Not to mention the idea of coal being indestructible. Can you burn it? Yeah, you're supposed to. It's not indestructible. Anyway, just interesting that in a 2-day span, they went from, hooray, everybody's going to get jobs putting little screws in things to make iPhones. No, that sucks, actually, right? Yeah, 2 days later, the president says, oh, that sucks. You don't want to do that. So anyway, I just found that sort of turnaround to be interesting. I also wondered about that goofy speech. How come nobody laughs at those speeches? Like whenever he says 2 weeks something, I keep thinking the reporters will laugh when they hear that because it's such a ridiculous thing that he keeps saying that. I was wondering, he did go to the verbal crutch of something, whatever the hell it was. He did it with the water part that we played with Greg before, but in this one is what's he's talking about. About the money pouring in from all the tariffs. It's already coming, and then this too, again, at a level no one has ever seen before. How come nobody laughs out loud every time he says that? Oh my God, he just said it again. It's the Wilhelm scream of his speeches. He says 2 weeks or like no one's ever seen before. We should be laughing about that a lot more often. Anyway, golly, there's an awful lot going on elsewhere, and time for us to really refocus. I was thumbing through my own Blue Sky feed for some other things that had reached my eyes over the last couple of days, but we can just go to Pocket. And some of it is parked there, some of it I'll be reminded of. by the time we get back around to reading it. So here's some more courtroom news. I don't think there's any new news from Roberts' administrative stay on the Abrego Garcia case. I don't think that's developed any further, which is a shame all by itself. But again, the practitioners are saying it should have. We wish it would have resolved itself by the deadline imposed by the judge in Maryland, but that's not going to happen. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's never going to happen, or even that Roberts is opposed to it happening. We just kind of have to wait and see, though they've stunned us a number of times. Another thing we have to wait and see about, the Associated Press, interestingly enough, I don't know what makes them interested in this story, but they do carry this headline, AP, Associated Press. Not just that they're reporting it, but it's in the headline. AP wins reinstatement to White House events after judge rules government can't bar its journalists. And I guess if I really wanted to long story short this one, we should hear the details. The courts decided, a federal judge on Tuesday ordered the White House to restore the Associated Press's full access to cover presidential events, affirming on First Amendment grounds that the government cannot punish the news organization for the content of its speech. David Bowder is getting the writing credit on this piece for the AP. I just wanted to point out, I'm going to make a long story short out of it. This decision was handed down. The AP immediately said, we'd like to get on board, Air Force One for the trip to this, to and from this event with the coal miners. And the White House said, no, but we just won in court. Yeah, well, we're appealing that. And in the meantime, F yourself. So just another one, another of the defiance of court orders, which normally a normal administration would say, yeah, we're appealing that stuff, but pending appeal, the law at the moment is, I guess we got to let you in. So who did it? In case you were wondering which radical leftist, it was U.S. District Judge Trevor N. McFadden, an appointee of Donald Trump, as it happens. Wow. Ruled that the government can't retaliate against the AP's decision not to follow the president's stupid executive order to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Remember, at bottom, that's what this is all about, which is incredible. The decision, while a preliminary injunction, handed the AP a major victory at a time the White House has been challenging the press on several levels. The major victory, of course, translated into no victory at all. Go F yourself, get off our plane. But the point is, we get the headline. Under the First Amendment, if the government opens its doors to some journalists, be it to the Oval Office, the East Room, or elsewhere, it cannot then shut those doors to other journalists because of their viewpoints. McFadden wrote, the Constitution requires no less. You can close the doors because of fire code, but you can't close the doors because of viewpoint. It was unclear whether the White House would move immediately to put McFadden's ruling into effect, and then it became clear. The answer was no, but they had hopes, so they said it was unclear. McFadden held off on implementing his order for a week, by the way. That's actually probably, that's a good point. Like if he says, well, as judges have been doing these days, once again, like that's why why there's so much resonance in the idea of comparing it to moving the Rubicon slowly closer to Rome so that Caesar never actually is in danger of crossing it, or never actually does anyway. Well, we find, look, it's basic First Amendment stuff. You can't do this. But because I know you're appealing, you're not very appealing people, but that you're appealing this case, I'll put my decision. I'm standing by my decision. I'm just going to stand here over here where you won't hear me for a week, so that you can appeal to someone higher than me to try and turn it around. But there you have it. Let's see. Shortly after the ruling, it wasn't clear, yada, yada. McFadden held off on implementing his order for a week, giving the government time to respond or appeal. Shortly after the ruling, an AP reporter and photographer were, in fact, turned away from joining a motorcade with the White House press pool to cover Trump's appearance before the National Republican Congressional Committee. So the bow tie one, where he went on to say some other incoherent things that we played a little earlier and was criticizing the people he was speaking to, right, as being insufficiently loyal to him because they might not be for tariffs. They wanted a ride back and forth to the event. Nope, can't join us. The AP has been blocked since February 11th from being among the small group of journalists to cover Trump in the Oval Office or aboard Air Force One, with sporadic ability to cover him at events in the East Room. Oh, I see. There's a First Amendment in the East Room sometimes. They're happy about the court's decision. It just hasn't done them any damn good, and we'll see whether anybody is going to believe in it or not. And in the meantime, I'm sure they're going to appeal. And we'll see where that goes. I think, where's McFadden? Is he in D.C.? Does that mean that the D.C. circuit will be the ones considering this? That'll make a big difference in what we expect, I guess, from the outcome. I don't know. It doesn't say where he is. We could look it up, and that'll give us some indication of what circuit he's in. But time now for a break. Well, look it up over the break, perhaps. I'll let you know what's happening, and then we'll move on from there to any number of other things. But we'll pick one to be the next story up. I still can't. That's interesting. It's major hole in the AP's reporting. Why didn't they tell us where he sits? Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Man, there are a lot of different directions to go. There's much more available in terms of court analysis. Steve Vladeck weighs in on the Supreme Court decision, the 5-4 decision in the Alien Enemies Act case, the one that was directly on point to certifying a class of affected individuals and their right to sue and block their deportations under the Administrative Procedure Act, plus challenge to the constitutionality of the application of the Alien Enemies Act, but they didn't reach that, et cetera, et cetera. But that analysis can get in depth and eat up some time. And we gave yesterday over to courtroom happenings or courtroom adjacent happenings yesterday, and there are a lot of other things that we really ought to get onto. Let's see. I wanted to give you this as background. We've mentioned this a little bit in passing. Perhaps more in-depth analysis is warranted. The Washington Post's piece, Musk, that is to say Elon, made direct appeals to Trump to reverse sweeping new tariffs. That is of some interest. Internal fights in the administration, the first indication that Elon Musk is not, after all powerful. So that's of interest. How far did he go, and how upset is he? Well, I mean, for him to call Peter Navarro a moron, I'd do that at the drop of a hat. So I don't know whether that really is very indicative of how deep Musk's disagreement is. But maybe this will give us some idea. The world's richest person, a key Trump advisor and political donor, by the way, was ultimately unsuccessful, and that's of some interest. This is yesterday's piece from the Washington Post by Elizabeth Dworkin, not Dworkin, but Dworkin, Faiz Siddiqui, Pranshu Verma, and Trisha Thadani. Possibly just Tadani, but with a TH. All right, let's get to the point. Over the weekend, as Elon Musk launched into a barrage of social media posts criticizing one of the lead White House advisors for President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff plan, Musk was going over that same official's head and making personal appeals to Trump. The attempted intervention, confirmed by two people familiar with the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity. Trump threatened on Monday to add new 50% tariffs on imports from China to go along with the 34% taxes he announced last week. The president did signal that he was open to negotiations on some aspects of his policy. Doesn't matter anymore. Musk, meanwhile, posted a video to X in which the late conservative economist Milton Friedman touted the benefits of international trade cooperation, the impersonal operation of prices, as he put it, breaking down the sources of the material that go into a simple wooden pencil. Musk's break with Trump over a signature administration priority marks the highest profile disagreement between the president and one of his key advisors, who poured nearly $290 million into backing him and other Republicans in last year's elections, and has been leading the U.S. Dodgy Service's cost-cutting efforts since January. And that's really just, I'm sure the Post writers considered that throwaway language. That's what Dodgy says it's up to, cost cutting. But we are reminded by more sharp-eyed critics in social media that that's not actually what's happening. Lots of costs are, being cut. That's true. But on net, it turns out that Dodgy's activities are ending up costing us more money than it is saving. But I'm sure they would dispute that, and I suppose if you want to give an airing to both sides, you could do that. But I'm just pointing out, others have said there are unstated costs, unstated by the administration, unacknowledged by the administration, that on balance still mean that we are wasting money with Dodgy's efforts versus saving any. Anyway, back to the point of the article, the disagreement between the two. Musk has also disagreed with other members of Trump's coalition on issues such as H-1B visas for skilled immigrants. He needs them, right? He uses them at all of his companies. And on Dodgy's approach to government spending. There have been differences there, too. On Saturday, Musk took aim at the administration official who's been key to developing the tariff plans. There's a story there, too. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, lighting into his credentials. A PhD in econ from Harvard is a bad thing, not a good thing, Musk wrote. I can live with that. On Tuesday morning, Musk again targeted Navarro in a series of X posts as he responded to comments made by Navarro on CNBC, calling Musk a car assembler rather than a manufacturer in many cases. I don't know what the quote "in many cases" is supposed to mean, but okay. Navarro is truly a moron, Musk said in one post, decrying the claim as false, before calling him dumber than a sack of bricks in another, and then following up by defending Tesla, saying it is the most vertically integrated auto manufacturer in America with the highest percentage of U.S. content. That might even be true. I don't know. Musk concluded by saying Navarro should ask the fake expert he invented, Ron Vara, a reference to Navarro's reported use of a fictional trade expert and an anagram of his last name in his books. There's the story I was hinting at. And there's a whole report just on that. But you should know about that one if it hasn't hit your inbox yet. And it probably, saying the name out loud makes sense. Ron Vara, referred to by Navarro. Yeah. So Navarro's theory of import taxation, of tariffs, is, well, it's upside down and backwards, but he was claiming that, oh no, it's actually quite well established as true. All you have to do is read the fantastic work of economic science written by Ron Vara. And he gave citations and everything. Oh yeah, Ron Vara says it in his book, blah, blah. There's no Ron Vara. He made it up just as he made up the... This is really interesting. He sock puppeted his own academic work, which, by the way, didn't, what's his name, Bill Ackman, get all exercised? But we got to fire people from Harvard and everywhere else. There was plagiarisms going on. And, of course, as it turns out, there really wasn't. But they made life so difficult that they ended up firing. Was it from Harvard, Columbia, both? I don't even remember now. Harvard, I think, where he's a trustee. Plagiarism. But not plagiarism. What about just making up references? That's not got him exercised? I guess not. Well, maybe it does, because now he's anti-tariff. We'll see. Navarro did not respond to a request for comment on Monday or Tuesday. This is what it says here, but it makes it long-winded. Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and tariffs. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters, boys will be boys. How do you like that? And we will let their public sparring continue. And you guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history. And I think it also speaks to the president's willingness to hear from all sides. That's a hell of a spin on it. And yeah, I guess that's, by the way, they can continue to make that claim. We do have, well, I didn't think we had, but now they have reason to make that claim. We're the most transparent administration in history. We are even giving away our attack plans in Yemen for free on Signal, just in case you want to know about them. In an interview with how did we get to this? Italian Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini over the weekend. Okay. Musk said he would like to see a free trade zone between Europe and the United States. At the end of the day, I hope it's agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero tariff situation. By the way, the facts on the ground this morning, opposite direction. Europe saying, well, I guess we really just should up the tariffs on the United States and look to become more independent of them in every aspect of our operations. Musk also said that he would like to see more freedom for people to move between countries in Europe and the United States and work in either if they wish. That has certainly been my advice to the president, he said. By the way, that's known as open borders, but with white people, so it's okay. Musk, who is chief executive of electric vehicle maker Tesla, has long seen tariffs as detrimental to the business aims of a company that counts on both the United States and China as key manufacturing and consumer hubs. Other car manufacturers, though, are likely to be hurt more by the new tariffs, analysts have said, except for the fact that they have built like a gigantic mega plant for Tesla batteries made in China. That, too, parked in my pocket somewhere, the nature and depth of the dependency on China that Tesla's got, that would ordinarily call into question his, fitness for advising the president on matters of national security, by the way. In 2020, top executives at Tesla wanted the company to sue the Trump administration over its tariffs on China all the way back then. Musk initially agreed, saying that parts of Trump's package were unfair to the car maker, but after Tesla filed the lawsuit in September of 2020, Musk reacted in a super negative way about the decision, even berating some staff members for suggesting Tesla file the suit, according to a person familiar with the matter, because of right-wing accounts on Twitter saying Musk was trying to curry favor with the Chinese and was going against Trump's America First agenda. Many of the business and technology leaders who supported Trump's candidacy were stunned by the president's decision to go forward with such steep tariffs and equally disappointed that they weren't able to exert more influence on the policy. The people in Musk's orbit made direct appeals to friends in the Trump administration, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Musk, arguing for what they felt were more sensible free trade policies. One Musk friend, investor Joe Lonsdale, posted on X that he had argued to friends in the administration in recent days that tariffs would hurt American companies more than Chinese ones. Lonsdale declined to comment about his arguments beyond his X post. A group of business leaders worked over the weekend to put together an informal group that would lobby members of the Trump administration for more moderate policies, said one of the people. But, obviously to no avail. Many supported Trump last year, even while knowing that the steep tariffs he had long promised could be destructive to both the tech industry and the economy as a whole, but they felt Trump could be swayed by advisors, such as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, to adopt a softer approach. The business leaders also did not anticipate that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who had been one of Musk's key conduits into Trump's orbit, would be such a strong advocate of protectionist policies. The dispute between the president and one of his most influential advisors comes just weeks before Musk, the world's richest person, we are reminded again, is expected to depart his post in the administration. So basically what we're seeing here is a lame duck period for Elon Musk. That's worth thinking about. It also comes amid increasing pressure on Tesla to reverse signs of slumping demand, prompted in part by Musk's foray into politics. He's really screwed the pooch on this one. The backlash from Trump's tariff policies in China and Musk's association will be hard to understate, said Dan Ives, analyst with Wedbush Securities, an enthusiastic Tesla backer who lowered Tesla's stock price target, its measure of its viability, from $550 to $315 to reflect those new softer demand estimates, and it's plummeted beyond, down past $315 into the high 200s now. Tesla has essentially become a political symbol globally, and that is a very bad thing for the future of this disruptive tech stalwart and the brand crisis tornado that he has now turned into an F5 tornado, he wrote. Tesla stock closed at, even lower than I thought, $233 per share on Monday, down more than 2.5%. So far this year, the stock has lost more than 38% of its value. Musk showed signs of attempting reconciliation later Monday. He touted an X thread from the official U.S. Trade Representative account highlighting what it called unfair trade practicing affecting American exporters in light of Trump's tariffs. Good point, Musk said. Musk's brother and fellow Tesla board member Kimball Musk also lobbed sharp criticism at the president over the tariff policies on Monday. Who would have thought that Trump was actually the most high-tax American president in generations, he wrote. Through his tariff strategy, Trump has implemented a structural, permanent tax on the American consumer. Oh, well. The remarks came less than a month after Kimball Musk had thanked Trump for hosting an event featuring Teslas on the White House lawn. Well, that's some interesting fallout all by itself. Now, somewhere in here, just to refer, I'll give you, if I can come up with it, something I've been holding for a while that I thought was of some interest. A ProPublica piece, and a long one at that. So we can't read the whole thing, but I'll give you the headline here. It's going to be very graphic and visual. How Elon Musk's SpaceX, not Tesla, but SpaceX secretly allows investment from China. This is interesting, too. Just this is not direct economic news necessarily, but just a reminder of how tied up in China Musk's interests really are, and how, they too likely will try and exert some influence here and say, I need you to try to move the president to be more pro-China in his approach, unless, you want to see something happen to your SpaceX investment, or for that matter, your the gigantic Tesla battery plants that you've built here. You've got a lot of businesses going on in China. And I guess maybe they may have, I don't know whether the upshot of this is that they leveraged his need for continued access to the battery plant for Tesla in China in order to shoehorn in Chinese investment in SpaceX, which now that SpaceX kind of occupies a national security role in everything, the influence of China is of some concern. Anyway, something we ought to keep an eye on, how Elon Musk's SpaceX secretly allows investment from China. Joshua Kaplan and Justin Elliott wrote it back on March 26th. And again, I'll just give you sort of the subheader here to give you an idea of what's going on. As a U.S. military contractor, SpaceX sees allowing Chinese ownership as fraught, but it will allow the investment if it comes through secrecy hubs like the Cayman Islands, court records say. It is certainly a policy of obfuscation, an expert said. In other words, they tried to play down Chinese investment, and I guess maybe they're supposed to disallow Chinese investment entirely. But if you launder the money in the Cayman Islands, we'll look the other way. So what could that lead to, one wonders? Well, one way of finding out about the implications, of course, reading this ProPublica piece. I'll put it on the record for today and see whether, maybe it's something we want to discuss tomorrow, but we can't get all the way through it today. But it's out there and you need to think about it. Now, another issue related to the tariffs that also kind of has to make it into the record. More about that Ron Vara thing and some other weird angles involved here. They were covered apparently by Rachel Maddow the other day, so that means probably 90% of you already know the story. And at least one of you has contacted me to let me know that, it might be time to bring that up and share that with people. And if I can, I don't know if I can find that email all that readily, but good suggestion, I'll say. And so let me get to it. Credit where credit is due, yes. But can I come up with it right away? No. I really need to get to the story. Rachel Maddow explains the ridiculous true story that inspired Trump's tariff plan. And it's chiefly a video story because it's a clip from her program. But here it's summarized for us by Stephanie Kaloi, I guess, Kaloi. There's no S on the end, Kalwa, but I don't know. But this comes to us from where? The Wrap, via Yahoo News. So I don't know what the source of this is anymore. All I can do is tell you the writer. Cross my fingers that we got the right people involved here. To say the origins of Trump's sweeping international tariffs are dubious is an understatement, Rachel Maddow said on her MSNBC show on Friday night as she outlined exactly how we got here. Trump, quote, came up with the idea after the circulation of a fake memo from a fake person with a fake email address, she explained. That's dumb enough all by itself. But the fact that it also comes from a fake person should worry us. Why is he listening to these people? Remember, I'm just thinking of all the people who have always thought, well, as dumb as he is, at least he's got advisors who are not completely crazy. But I guess not. The memo in question was the brainchild of author and economist Peter Navarro, also a senior counselor for trade and manufacturing for the administration, also who went to jail in the in-between periods, just pointing that out, who entered the Trump sphere after Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner, what? That's how Navarro got in. Jared Kushner found his book Death by China and asked him to join Trump's 2016 presidential campaign as an economic advisor. So how did he get his foot in the door in Trump world? He wrote a book called Death by China, and it was, whatever. It was his theory of how to deal with trade by China, with China, rather. And as it turns out, the major thesis is backed up by garbage. Isn't that something? And Jared Kushner, with his Harvard education, unable to detect the garbage-ness of it. In his books, Maddow continued, Navarro often cited the work of a so-called economics expert named Ron Vara. V-A-R-A. Ron Vara, Maddow said. Vara shared a memo in Washington, D.C. circles after Trump won the presidency. At one point, Ron Vara wrote in the memo that Trump could, quote, ride the tariffs to victory. Maddow said, well, so okay, he's selling that as a campaign point that'll win him some votes. The problem, though, besides the actual theory itself, was that Ron Vara doesn't exist. He never has. The economics expert that Peter Navarro has long cited to explain why he's so gung-ho on tariffs, this person, Ron Vara, is a made-up person. That's all quote from Rachel Maddow. He is a fictional person. Peter Navarro invented Ron Vara as his expert source so that he could quote this expert source over and over and over again in his crackpot books, she continued. Who is Ron Vara? Ron Vara is an anagram of Navarro, his last name. I mean, as Rachel Maddow points out, my name anagrams to Macho Wattler. But I don't see myself trying to talk you into what Macho Wattler wants, right? At the beginning of this segment, Maddow pointed to two previous peaks in the VIX index. I don't know what that is, but it is said to measure stock market volatility. The two most recent, I guess, spikes, it's missing from the text here, but the two most recent spikes, we'll say, were in 2008 during the global recession and in March of 2020 at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a third peak, she said, that represents the U.S. economy now. And that peak was not caused by the biggest financial catastrophe since the Great Depression or a global pandemic that's killing millions of people. That one was caused simply by Donald Trump being president again with his great ideas. And the scale of what he's doing, the scale of the destruction that he has wrought is a little bit hard to get your head around, Maddow added. It is hard to get your head around how much damage this one man can cause. I think it's even harder to get your head around simultaneously the fact that he can do damage of this magnitude with such a teeny, tiny amount of thought. There's a lot of teenies and teeny, tiny, to quote her, amount of thought. And most of the thought is fake, as it turns out, on top of it all. You'd think it would take like a grand plan and some big brains to figure out how to destroy the economy of the richest nation on earth. But that's not how it's working out. Turns out it doesn't take a big idea or a lot of big brains working together. So it makes for an interesting clip, to say the least. I don't want to play it on the show because, trademark. And you should all go and view her delivering it. I'm sure it's much more impactful that way. But this is the way to get you the news and a source to go and really absorb it. Go watch we'll give you this Yahoo News story, which will have links to the video itself. You can see it from the original source. But yeah, where's Bill Ackman on the whole plagiarism scandal thing now? I don't know. By the way, golly, this too should probably be just held for Friday. But since we're talking about weirdos who advise the Trump administration or inform the Trump administration, lots more reporting of late on Curtis Yarvin and his weirdo weirdness. And he's getting angry and frustrated about this. By the way, he's getting frustrated with Trump for not destroying enough things quickly enough, too. So if you just want to know where his head is at these days, we really need to spend some time catching up on what he's been doing and how terrible he is and how frightening it is that anybody would ever listen to him, I guess. All right, let's see. We got just 2 or 3 more minutes left here to see whether we can work in a few other important points, some of these which, this is a good one too. Will I be able to get through this? Probably. Maybe we'll take a racing through it and give it to you to read. This is an opinion piece in the Washington Post that I thought was interesting in its phrasing, the discussion of the problem. Head grabber of a headline: MAGA Maoism. Thinking about that one. MAGA Maoism is spreading through the populist right. A new conservative strain dreams of sending the bourgeoisie to work the factories. Turning the little screws thing. So some additional context for that formulation and Trump's own rejection of it. Interesting enough. Rotimi Adoye is my best guess at the pronunciation. My God, my apologies to you, sir. For mangling the name, and assuming your gender, by the way. Rotimi Adoye, it's Adeoye, is a political writer and former congressional speechwriter to then Representative Dan Kildee of Michigan. Check this out. On quote-unquote Liberation Day this past week, President Donald Trump announced a 10% universal tariff on all imported goods and far greater ones on individual countries. His administration framed it as a course correction to make America, quote, competitive again. But if you listened closely, especially to his supporters, this wasn't just about trade. It was about work and the kinds of work that still count. Recently, a viral meme in MAGA circles captured the moment, featuring a cartoon Trump addressing a faceless American. Your great-grandfather worked in the mines. Your grandfather worked in a steel plant. And you thought you could be a product manager? It's a joke, but it's also a worldview. One where white-collar ambition is seen not as a step forward, but as a fall into decadence. The meme doesn't just mock digital work, it exalts physical labor as the only authentic form of contribution, says Jesse Waters, for instance, who daily gets his hair and makeup taken care of. What we're seeing is a kind of MAGA Maoism, remixed for the algorithm age. Like the Chinese Cultural Revolution, it glorifies physical labor as moral purification. It does. Only now the purification is from the supposed wokeness of desk work, filtered through TikTok, X, and Twitch. It's not about creating jobs. It's about creating vibes. Strong men doing hard things, reshared until they become ideology. As one MAGA influencer put it, men in America don't need therapy. Men in America need tariffs and dodgy. The fake email jobs will disappear. This style, what some might call online pastoralism, I guess that's a possibility, is no longer fringe. It's a governing strategy. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently hinted to Tucker Carlson that the administration plans to restock American factories with recently fired federal workers. Well, they'll be looking for work. It's a sharp evolution of the old MAGA line, which claimed elites abandoned the working class by offshoring jobs and hoarding the degrees that powered the new economy. Now, those same college-educated liberals once seen as the future of work are being recast as its obstacle. This new turn is also punitive. It challenges the idea drilled into millennial and Gen Z brains, especially immigrant families, like my own, he says, that education and meritocracy are the path to the American dream. It says not only that you were left behind, but that you were wrong to try to get ahead. Populists used to share memes about miners who were condescendingly told to learn to code while their towns struggled. The coders in this updated version need to be thrown back into the mines. What makes this iteration feel uniquely American is how aestheticized it has become. Online, there's an industry of memes and male micro-celebrities fetishizing rural life, manual labor, and the kind of fake rugged masculinity that is about economic reality is less about economic reality and more about identity performance. Trump doesn't need to build a single factory for that performance to succeed. He only needs to sell the image of one. Definitely something to think about, something to read the conclusion of on your own, though we may digest it and share it tomorrow. Time now, though, to give up the microphone for the day, catch our breath, and pass things on to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, because guess what? He's got a lot of things to share with you, too. Well, he begins with, at the top of his list, of course, Musk. If Musk claims Navarro is a moron, what does Musk think of Trump, who follows Navarro's advice? Elsewhere in his collection of stories, a former Facebook employee will testify before Congress that Meta executives undermined U.S. national security and briefed Chinese officials on emerging technologies. We've got a lot of ties to the Chinese, it turns out.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
How about this one he's got on top for you? More than half the families who applied for Alabama's new school voucher program, remember those? They already have children attending private school. Happens all the time. And Democratic-led cities and states are pushing back on threats to cut U.S. school funding over DEI. Good to see him standing up. We'll see you again tomorrow.